Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and man does it feel good to say that again. I can't even begin to tell you guys how great it feels to be back and doing this again. But as exciting as it is to be back, we also have a very exciting review because we have the brand new PNSO Styracosaurus. Quite clearly his name is Anthony, so we have Anthony the Styracosaurus to take a look at today, which is nice to see another ceratopsian hitting the PNSO line. We have had quite a bit of ceratopsians, especially recently, as we've had the Triceratops, the Centrosaurus, now the Styracosaurus, and overall, as far as the line's history goes, there have been quite a bit of ceratopsians, and this is one that I was really excited about because who doesn't love a Styracosaurus? It's such a beautiful looking ceratopsian, and to see a PNSO version was very exciting. So as you can see, as far as the box art goes, it's pretty much your standard as usual. A very nice image of the Styracosaurus here on the front of the box, as well as the PNSO logo, and again the species name, as well as the name of the dinosaur. Up here on the top of the box, we've got another very nice image there of the head sculpt of our Styracosaurus. Pretty much the same image here on the back, and then an image over here, again, of the Styracosaurus, a slightly different angle, and then same deal over here. So cannot wait to get this open. So psyched to be back doing reviews again, so let's pop this baby out of its box and take a look at it. So straight away, as soon as we open it, we've got ourselves the poster, and I always love the posters included with these releases, and wow, that is a beautiful poster of a Styracosaurus. Let's go ahead and check that out. That is a fantastic looking poster. That Styracosaurus is about to completely leave the ground as it has only 1 foot still touching, but very nice looking image of a Styracosaurus. Again, these PNSO posters are probably some of the nicest artwork you will ever see as far as paleo art goes, and definitely the type of posters that deserve frames and areas up on any collector's wall. I love the addition of these posters. And then we also have the booklet, so we always get that nice booklet with your PNSO figure, and we can go ahead and kind of go through it a little bit here, just briefly kind of fly through this here, and you can see some beautiful images, again, kind of like some dinosaur toy photography here, and again, more as you go on, you start to get information, of course, on the Styracosaurus here, but there are also pages of information on PNSO in general in here. The same image that we had seen on the front of the box art right there, and then as we move through, we basically have a photo gallery here at first, just showing off how fantastic the Styracosaurus figure is, showing many different angles of it, which is nice to see. Nice top angle, beautiful looking striping there along the back. As we continue along here, again, you have lots of stuff usually included. Maybe we'll have some hand-drawn. There we go, a hand-drawn type of an image of a Styracosaurus. That's actually really quite nice. Kind of like that greenish look to the ceratopsian right there. And then as we move through, again, some more kind of like hand-drawn images, which look great. Lots of different angles yet again. And then more and more as you go through. Again, these booklets are always just filled to the top with awesomeness, so definitely something to look forward to if you purchase the model, would be not only checking out the awesome pictures inside, but again, reading the plethora of information that is included within. Awesome additions every single time are those booklets. And then we've got ourselves the Styracosaurus itself, and that is a really, really, really nice looking Styracosaurus. Again, beautiful looking paintwork. I had also seen images of this one, similar to pretty much every PNSO release, where people had received the figure and they kind of complained because the paint scheme and paint application didn't look exactly like the prototype did. And I will say this, probably every review, you're probably never going to find that, because you have to take into consideration that the promotional images, they're painted by a paleo artist. And then, of course, the figures themselves are factory painted. So for this to be a factory paint job, like, that is really nice looking, honestly. The factory that PNSO uses, in my opinion, does an excellent job on every release, and again, make them about as close as you can get to the prototype when it comes to what you would expect from a factory. Many times you'll get paint jobs from the factories that are just like really bad. Like Papo is a great example of that. Like, their promotional images sometimes look unbelievable, and then the figure is just so far different than what the promo images show off. And I feel like as far as the figures from the factory compared to the prototype with PNSO goes, they're not usually too far off. There's obviously some very obvious differences between the factory released version and the prototype, that's just a given. But I feel like as far as what, the closest you can get to what the prototype looks like, I feel like PNSO is very, very good at providing you a figure with that type of a paint job. I think the only thing, honestly, that something that maybe PNSO could improve upon in the future would be maybe adding in like some sort of like washes to the face, like dark washes. Like you'll consistently see really nice washes and dry brushing out here on the body. Like I can see that here just looking. Like here's a nice white, kind of a lighter wash there, really highlighting some scales. And you can also see like some dry brushing and stuff. But more often than not, they don't do that too much in the face of the dinosaurs, or at least in the ceratopsians specifically. And I feel like that could potentially improve the appearance to the paint application of the face. But even without those additions, like that is a fantastic looking paint job there on the face of the Styracosaurus. There are just tons of colors that I'm picking up on here as far as color variation goes, so it really looks beautiful. So I am beyond excited to go ahead and get back to work with these reviews, so let's jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Styracosaurus, you can again see what I was talking about, where there are just so many different variations of colors. Like you could see very dark colors up here, like almost like dark blues sort of that are up here, like a dark grayish blue. And then as you run down the side of the face, you start to see it transition, and we have kind of like a reddish coloration, like a reddish tone. And then the further down you get, it varies in color. Like I can see like brownish tones in there and almost like light khakis and stuff. Like there's quite a bit of color variation right there in that area of the face of the Styracosaurus. And on top of the very nice color variation, it's extremely impressive, again, as always, how vibrant that detail is. Like the detail of PNSO figures just honestly jumps out at you. It is so vibrant, so beautiful. And you can see that for sure throughout the entire head sculpt, and specifically in the snout here of the Styracosaurus. As you lead up into the, of course, trademark Styracosaurus kind of nasal horn here, you can see that I like how it starts out with a darker tone of color, like a darker shade of brown, and transitions very smoothly to lighter tones as you lead out toward the tip of the horn. And the actual fine detail of the horn is phenomenal. Like, I love the detailing there at the lower part of the horn, before, like as it connects to the face there, before it leads up into the, tip of the horn. But as you lead out throughout the course of the horn, look at how fantastic that detail is. Like, very small, minute cracks and crevices and stuff. Just an overly realistic looking horn sculpt for the Styracosaurus. And then as you lead down here, you can see that the nostrils are sculpted out very nicely. They're also highlighted with a pinkish tone of color. You can see the beak as well sports a nice dark tone and really nice detailing in that area as well. Again, similar to the horn up here, you can see like some very fine detail. The figures are so small, I feel like it's hard to pick out how incredible the detail is, but that honestly looks great as far as the sculpting and detailing aspect goes. As you lead up here into the face, you can see again so many different varying sizes of scales leading up toward the eye. You can see a nice healthy mixture of bigger and smaller scaling throughout every area. You can also see some nice creasing there in the eye socket, and the eye is painted with an orangish tone of color, given a nice black pupil, and sports a beautiful gloss coat, so it shines and glistens like a real eye would. And again, you can continue to see how the colors transition back and forth. Like you start with a nice dark tone there in the eye socket and kind of leading down into the cheek area of the Styracosaurus before tapering back off to a lighter tone of like a brownish coloration and some green as well. And then leading up into the frill itself, again, detail-wise, it is phenomenal. So many different varying scales throughout the course of the frill of our ceratopsian, but you can also see a beautiful design up here with some nice stripes that run through. You have kind of like a very light reddish orange in the area of the frill, but you also have some alternate tones of orange as well as black that kind of stripes in and out of the frill right there, allowing it to look really flashy, really colorful, but at the same time really natural. Pretty much exactly like I would like to see. And I love the way that the spikes are colored that, circle around the frill. Of course, one of the most notable areas of a Styracosaurus would be the spikes leading around the frill. And I like how they start out with almost like a chocolate brown, and some have even hints of like reddish browns in them, and then lead out to a lighter tip, almost like greenish tips. Like the coloration chosen for the spikes of the frill looks so flashy and so cool, like really, really striking colors that they've used for those areas. And the detailing in the horns up here also look pretty nice, but not quite as nice as what we see on the horn down there on the nasal area of the Styracosaurus, but it does still look really quite nice overall, and the transition between colors is incredibly smooth. And then as you move down here again to the alternate side of the face, you can see the face looks great over here, just like it did on the initial side that we were checking out over there. As you lead back here into the neck, you can see the neck of the Styracosaurus is actually stretched pretty far. It's also in a right turn. You can see that quite nicely. You can also see the throat down here on the underside, as well as some nice skin wrinkles and beautiful scaling. But again, you can see how the skin is really stretching over here on this side due to how far out the neck is stretched on the Styracosaurus. You can also pick up on the ear back here, which I almost missed. But again, you can see some nice color variation as we have some greenish tones as well as some beautiful dry brushing with, I think, maybe a dark brown. And then as we lead up here to the top of the Styracosaurus, you can see some slight changes in color as well as a striping picking up here running along the back of the Styracosaurus. On the rear of the frill, you can see some beautiful tones of green as well as even some light hints of like orangish browns as you get closer to the neck down from the top of the frill, and even some darker tones of green as you reach the top of the frill. So there's some very nice coloration added to the rear of the frill as well. And more of those kind of reddish browns here that actually look more like just orangish colorations here on the back of those spikes that lead around the frill. As you run along the back of the Styracosaurus, you can see the spinal column very nicely elaborated up here, as well as a nice healthy dose of osteoderms that are pretty much littering the entire upper side of the Styracosaurus. You can also see some very nice light washes. It seems as though they kind of have like some whitish washes. You can really see it right here in like the creases of the hip. Like that's one area that is very abundant, but you can see that kind of showing up very lightly throughout many different areas. Like another spot that's pretty nice and visible would be right here in the thigh. So there's some very cool looking light washes that have been applied, and there's also like some nice variations of reddish browns that you can see, very subtle areas of that coloration picking up here running along the back of the Styracosaurus. And of course the striping that runs down the back of the Styracosaurus as well is incredibly smooth as far as the application of the paint goes. Like it clearly has been applied with an airbrush, and it's incredibly smooth the way that they have done that. You can also see more of that color as it kind of spots down here into the side of the Styracosaurus. Very nice, very fine scale detail throughout the side of the dinosaur, and again more of those osteoderms leading down here into the side of the stomach. As you lead down here into the front leg, you can see absolutely fantastic scale detail right there that again has been hit with a little bit of dry brushing as well as a wash to make that area pop beautifully. I actually even see like some light hints of blues in there. I don't know if that's supposed to be there or what, but just a really subtle area of color difference that I was just picking up on. And then as you lead down, you can see some nice, variations of light greens, but there's also some pinkish tones that pick up. And that's something that PNSO does seem to do quite often. And I really like that they do, because I feel like that's something that is a very potentially realistic aspect of an animal like this. As far as its skin tone, you would maybe potentially see like some tones of pink. I just always feel like that's a very realistic tone of color. And then as you lead down in through the course of the front leg, you can again see the muscle definition looks great. The scale detail is phenomenal. Some nice creasing and everything throughout the front of the leg. As you lead down into the foot sculpt, you can see some beautiful creasing in the wrist, as well as, again, a very nicely sculpted out foot. The toes are nicely sculpted, elaborated quite beautifully, and the nails are painted with a brown, it looks like. There's some nice dry brushing on the feet as well. And then as you lead up here, you can see the skin stretching off of the body very nicely, again, because the leg is pulling back there, stretching that skin beautifully. PNSO has definitely shown that off very nicely in the sculpt. And again, you see more of that pinkish tone of color right in front of the thigh. But as you lead up into the thigh, you can see the very massive thigh in general of the dinosaur. The hip bone as well is nicely elaborated, but you could pick up on just tons of dry brushing and washes that have been added throughout many different areas. There's also some really slight, subtle spotting here, again, from that darker coloration from up above in the thigh region. As you lead down the leg, you can pick out the kneecap. And again, a very nice looking calf muscle with some more extremely vibrant scale detail, like it's really popping in that area. And then as you lead down into the rear foot, you can see how the toes are leaving the ground as the Styracosaurus is taking a step. Very nicely painted nails again here on the rear foot. Nicely sculpted out toes as well. Some nice creasing again here in the back of the thigh because of the positioning of the leg moving again in comparison to the tail right there. You can see more of those pinkish tones picking up as you lead out the length of our very small and short Styracosaurus tail, and you can see that those stripes continue along throughout the course of the tail. As you look here on the underside, you see a lot of those pinkish tones down here, kind of like a nice mixture of pinkish tones as well as kind of like a tan throughout the course of the underside. We do have a cloaca present on the underside, which is something that you usually see when it comes to PNSO. They're usually very good at including every ounce of detail you would expect to find. I really like the detailing in the thigh right here on the underside. Look at that. That is actually exceptionally well done. You can even see more of that dry brushing there running along the back of the calf. But you have some very nice scale detail, larger, kind of thicker scaling here on the underside of the Styracosaurus, and you can also see a little bit of girth in the stomach as the dinosaur definitely appears to be fairly well fed. And then as you lead up throughout the front of the dinosaur, you can again pick up on like some creasing and stuff leading up into the neck of the Styracosaurus. And then over here, you're not going to see too much difference because it's not like it's in any kind of a crazy dramatic pose, but with the Styracosaurus having its head turned right, you can see some nice creasing in the neck leading down from the top of the neck, but really nicely down here on the side of the neck. And of course, since it's turning in this position, you would definitely see that creasing occurring on a real living animal with that positioning again occurring. So they have captured that very nicely in the sculpt. And then as you lead back here, you can again see that the front leg is in a different position compared to the opposing leg. This one is picking up off of the ground, showing how the Styracosaurus is walking. I really like the curvatures of the toes right there. Again, as you see that foot leaving the ground, right there, there's some nice creasing in the wrist as well as the wrist is bending. And you can see some skin folding and stretching and stuff up here as the leg is pushing into the body very nicely. And you see more of those pinkish tones here in the stomach region. Lots of skin wrinkles right here because the leg is kind of scrunching the skin between the thigh and the front leg here. Again, scrunching that skin up very nicely. And you can see some more nice scale detail as well as osteoderms galore leading up throughout the course of the side of the Styracosaurus. And then over here, as far as the rear leg goes, this leg is definitely planted. You can see the foot is planted as the opposing leg is the leg that's lifting up off of the ground as the dinosaur walks along. But sculpt-wise, again, you can see it looks great. Very nice bulging calf muscle with some very nicely elaborated scales there. Again, the nice dry brushing has really made the scale detail of the rear leg pop, and you can see that throughout the course of the entire figure here as far as this rear leg specifically anyway. But they have done a good job of applying that dry brushing through many different areas of the figure. And then as you lead out into the tail, you can again see some more kind of skin wrinkles and skin stretching and stuff right there before leading out into, of course, our very short Styracosaurus tail. So this is a really beautiful Styracosaurus, definitely another fantastic ceratopsian, and again, in my opinion, quite nicely exceeding what I was expecting due to many images I had seen online, which is one reason why just taking actual like pictures and stuff, sometimes people's cameras just aren't the best quality, so when you see the images and stuff, it kind of deceives you and makes you think that the figure isn't going to be as nice as it is. And it's another case of that for me because I had seen people posting images of the figure and it didn't look all that great in their images, but here in hand I can definitely say it looks very, very nice. As far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at from the tail to the tip of the horn, actually about 7 inches or around the 18 centimeter mark. And then for a height to the top of the spikes here on the frill, you're looking at pretty much 4 inches on the dot or a little over 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack, Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Styracosaurus, showing you that the Styracosaurus falls in a similar size range as many of the PNSO ceratopsians, as we don't have too many large ceratopsians in the PNSO line as far as figures go, and this one kind of fits right there, I think, in a very similar size range to many others. And to show you that further, again, here is the recent Centrosaurus in comparison to the Styracosaurus. Now you can clearly see the Styracosaurus is a bit larger, so it's not, of course, like a moment where every figure is the exact same size, which is definitely a plus. You can see they are obviously very different in size, but they're not too far off until you bring in the newer Triceratops, and then you can definitely see a pretty drastic difference in size, as the Triceratops is obviously quite a bit larger than the Styracosaurus is. But for another comparison, we've also got ourselves Wilson, and you know what's upsetting about Wilson is for the longest time, everybody was always like complaining about the balancing issues with Wilson, and I was always like, I don't understand why people say this stuff, because my Wilson stands perfectly until just recently, and I don't know what exactly happened to him, but now he is like the most top-heavy dinosaur ever, like just refuses to stand for me anymore, unless I have, of course, the stand, which I didn't bring over with me because I'm not the brightest person in the world, but you can see, we'll position it so that he's kind of attacking him. There we go. But we again have Wilson in comparison to the Styracosaurus, showing you that the size of the Tyrannosaurus is obviously much larger than our Styracosaurus here that we have before us. And then a few other randoms that I've been using for some comparisons lately. We've got the Collectae Dimetrodon here in comparison to our Styracosaurus from PNSO. We've also got a Takaratomi Tyrannosaurus Rex here in comparison to the PNSO Styracosaurus. Again, very, very different in size between those two figures. And then as far as ceratopsians go, one of the most popular beasts of the Mesozoic ceratopsian series figures, the Zuniceratops, in comparison to the Styracosaurus. Again, showing you that the Styracosaurus is smaller than the smallest ceratopsian from the beasts of the Mesozoic line. And then we've also got ourselves, and I'm going to turn this one around a little bit, we've got ourselves the Batat Styracosaurus in comparison to our PNSO one, showing you that although the PNSO Styracosaurus is a little on the smaller side, clearly he's not the smallest one out there. And then for a final size comparison, we've got ourselves a kind of beat up Schleich Triceratops in comparison to the Styracosaurus. And I know that Schleich Triceratops is one figure that many collectors own, so I figured that would be a pretty, obvious and fun one to bring in and show in a comparison. So this brand new PNSO Styracosaurus is another beautiful model from them. Again, they are just hammering out figures like mad. They usually do this where they just deliver and deliver and deliver, and then they'll take a little break, they'll give us a few weeks to a month maybe where we can breathe, and then they just start hammering them out. It is honestly amazing to me how PNSO can produce so many figures continuously. They're just incredible at giving us top-of-the-line figures, and this Styracosaurus is another great example of how good PNSO's figures are. Again, I think the figure looks fantastic from a sculpt standpoint. It's very highly detailed, sporting some really beautiful, very fine detailing that you really need to get up close to the figure to take a look at and really acknowledge, because like areas, again, like the horn, because of the paint, I feel like you can't really tell just how highly detailed that horn is until you get a nice close look. Like from a distance, you just can't notice it until you're up close. The paint looks fantastic, but due to the lighter tones, the like cracks and crevices and stuff of that area, that just doesn't stand out as much as it could. Like if it had a dry brushing over, like you would really take notice to that a little more. But honestly, the detailing, as far as like the fine details go, is unbelievable on this figure. And some areas they have done a great job of bringing that detail out, like looking throughout the course of the body with the really nice dry brushing, the beautiful washes and stuff. You can really see how nice the fine detail and the scale detail is throughout the course of the Styracosaurus. And of course, they've done a fantastic job as far as creating movement throughout the course of the figure, like really nice skin stretching, skin wrinkles, skin folds. That's beautiful everywhere as well. And then you have, again, as far as a detailing standpoint goes, extremely vibrant detail, better than most, I would say. Like it really pops on the sculpt. So that, as well, is an aspect of PNSO that is very common, but something to be admired. And then on top of that, we have a fantastic paint job, I think, really nice tones of color, many different tones of color, and very nice naturalistic tones overall. Very flashy, but at the same time, really natural. And again, just an overall gorgeous interpretation of a Styracosaurus. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on the PNSO Amazon store and the PNSO Aliexpress store. So make sure you check those links. Go buy this beautiful Styracosaurus. And I will see you guys in the next review. Thanks for watching.